Rain hammered against the courthouse windows as Nora Leighton's trembling hand slid the divorce papers across the table. Her husband, billionaire Adrian Kane, didn't even show up, just his lawyer. Cameras waited outside, eager to capture the fall of the perfect wife. Nora walked into the storm, mascara streaking down her face, her heart collapsing with every flash of light. She passed a newsstand, headlines screaming Adrian Kane marries best friend Sloane. Her phone. Nora dropped the phone as thunder cracked. She was pregnant with the man who just married her best friend. The Geneva flight boarded at gate 47, half empty, filled with quiet business travelers and exhausted tourists clutching neck pillows. Nora Leighton stood in line, clutching her passport like a lifeline. Her eyes were swollen from hours of crying, her mind spinning between disbelief and fury. Just as she handed her ticket to the attendant, a deep voice behind her said, "Mrs. Leighton, don't board that plane yet." She turned sharply. A tall man in a charcoal coat held out an envelope sealed with a gold wax emblem, Kane Quantum. She recognized him instantly, Graham Sterling, the outspoken investor who'd once called Adrian a genius trapped by his own ego on CNBC. "How do you know my name?" she demanded. He smiled faintly. "Because you helped design Kane Quantum's branding 3 years ago, and because Adrian Kane is still on payroll for a contract you wrote." Nora blinked. "That contract expired when I signed the divorce." "Not according to this." He tapped the envelope. "Inside is a document your ex-husband filed 2 weeks ago. He requested a paternity confirmation. Someone stopped it before the lab could process the sample." Her heart stuttered. "Paternity?" Graham nodded. "Adrian never saw the results because they were buried. You think he abandoned you, but maybe someone wanted him to." Nora felt the air thin around her. The gate agent called final boarding. "If you're getting on, now's the time." She took the envelope, hesitated, then said quietly, "I can't. Not yet." "Good," Graham replied. "Because there's more." Sloane Park authorized a crisis management payment the same week, $500,000 to a PR firm called Ames Consulting. Nora felt her knees weaken. "That's her old fixer." "What are you saying?" "That your friend may have staged your downfall," he said evenly. "Before you disappear to Switzerland, you deserve to know the whole story." But Nora couldn't breathe. Her vision blurred, her body trembled. She pressed a hand against her stomach where a faint ache pulsed beneath her ribs. "I have to go," she whispered. Graham stepped back, concern flickering across his normally cold eyes. "At least take my card. You'll need an ally." She accepted it mechanically, tucking it into her passport. Then she turned and walked down the jet bridge, the envelope clutched like a burning secret. Hours later, the plane touched down in Geneva. Snow swirled under soft streetlights outside the terminal. Dr. Elodie Marchand waited by arrivals, her face calm but urgent. "You made it just in time," she said. "Your test results show a rare twin condition. We must monitor you immediately." "Twins?" Nora whispered, stunned. Dr. Marchand nodded gently. "They are mirror twins, sharing one circulatory link. It is dangerous but not hopeless. You must stay here." At the hospital, Nora lay in a white room smelling of antiseptic and lavender soap. Machines beeped steadily beside her. For the first time in weeks, the chaos of Manhattan felt distant. She stared at the ultrasound screen, 2 flickers of life pulsing like tiny stars. When Dr. Marchand left, Nora reached into her purse and pulled out the envelope Graham had given her. She opened it slowly. Inside was a photocopy of a form, Adrian's signature scrawled beside, "Request for DNA test, Nora Leighton sample." Below it, in another hand, a note read, "Void per SP. SP Sloane Park." Her stomach twisted. So it was true. Her best friend had intervened, deleted the test, silenced the truth, and ensured the world saw her as the bitter ex-wife. Nora stared at the flickering ceiling light and whispered, "You wanted me gone, Sloane? Fine. I'll disappear, but I'll come back when you least expect it." Outside, Geneva's night air howled across the Rhone. In New York, Sloane Park sat before her vanity, scrolling through her wedding photos on Instagram. Her diamond glittered under soft light. Then, from her inbox, a new notification appeared. One new video file uploaded, Saint-Tropez. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. She clicked and froze. On the screen, her own face appeared, laughing, whispering into the ear of a man who wasn't Adrian. The screen flickered to life, showing the golden coast of Saint-Tropez 2 summers earlier, sunlight spilling over white yachts, laughter echoing across the deck. Sloane Park leaned closer to her laptop, heart pounding. The video showed her in a flowing silk dress, holding a champagne flute, whispering to a man in sunglasses who was clearly not Adrian Kane. It was Marcus Ames, the PR fixer she'd secretly hired to manage Nora's image. The camera panned closer, catching her voice. "If Nora's pregnant, we need to control the narrative. A scandal before the IPO would kill everything. Handle it quietly, and you'll get your bonus." Then her hand slipped him a small velvet pouch, the same one from the clinic video. The man smirked, pocketing it. Sloane's breath caught. Who recorded this? Her phone buzzed. Adrian calling. She ignored it, panic sharpening her thoughts. The video ended with her saying, "No one needs to know the real timeline, Marcus. Make it disappear." She slammed the laptop shut, trembling. The reflection in the glossy screen stared back, a woman she barely recognized. Cold, calculating, cornered. Across the ocean, in Geneva, Nora Leighton woke to the sound of a monitor beeping softly. The twins' heart rates had dipped again. Dr. Marchand and two nurses worked swiftly, adjusting IV lines. Nora tried to sit up, but pain shot through her abdomen. "Stay still," Dr. Marchand said gently. "We'll stabilize them. Talk to them. It helps." Nora placed a shaky hand over her belly. "It's okay, my loves. You're stronger than they know." The monitor steadied. 2 tiny beats found rhythm again. Later that evening, under the sterile hospital light, Nora scrolled through her phone out of habit. Sloane's wedding photos filled every headline, from best friend to billionaire bride. There they were at the Beverly Hills Hotel, surrounded by lilac hydrangeas, Nora's favorite flowers, copied from the wedding mood board she'd once designed for herself. She locked the screen and whispered bitterly, "She even stole the flowers." A nurse entered. "Message for you, Miss Leighton, from New York." Nora frowned, taking the sealed envelope. Inside was a small flash drive and a note in neat handwriting. "You don't know me, but I believe in justice. Plug this in when you're ready. No signature, no return address." Nora hesitated. Graham's warning echoed in her mind. "You'll need allies." She connected the drive to her laptop, the screen filled with encrypted folders, one labeled Saint-Tropez. Her pulse raced. When she clicked it, the same video that had shaken Sloane now played for her. Her jaw dropped as she watched her former best friend whispering bribes, trading her privacy for control. Tears blurred her eyes, but anger burned hotter. She hit pause when Sloane said, "Make it disappear." Nora whispered, "No, Sloane, I'll make sure it doesn't." She copied the file to her cloud backup and sent a secure link to Maya Patel, her attorney. The message read simply, "Keep this safe. I'll explain later." Back in New York, Sloane's phone chimed again, an automated alert from iCloud. Your video Saint-Tropez.mp4 was synced to another device. Her blood ran cold. "No," she breathed, rushing to her settings. But the transfer was already complete. She called Marcus Ames. "We've got a problem." His voice crackled through static. "How bad?" "Someone has the footage," she hissed. "Delete every trace, every backup, now." There was silence on the line. Then Marcus said quietly, "Too late. Someone's already leaked it to an IP in Geneva." Sloane froze. Geneva. Nora. For the first time, fear, not guilt, seeped through her. Meanwhile, Nora stood by the hospital window, the Alps faintly glowing under moonlight. She touched her stomach and whispered, "You'll be born into truth, not lies." Then her phone vibrated, a blocked number flashing across the screen. She hesitated, answered, and heard a low male voice she didn't recognize. "Miss Leighton, this is a warning. Stop digging, or your children will never see daylight." The line went dead. The phone slipped from Nora's hand and hit the hospital floor with a hollow crack. For a heartbeat, she couldn't move. The anonymous voice replayed in her mind like a curse. "Stop digging, or your children will never see daylight." Her pulse spiked. The fetal monitor beside her began to scream as the twins' heart rates plunged. Dr. Marchand burst through the door, flanked by nurses. "Move! Move! She's going into distress." Nora gasped, clutching her stomach as a sharp pain ripped through her. The room blurred into chaos, gloves snapping, alarms shrieking, voices overlapping in French and English. Dr. Marchand gripped her hand. "Listen to me, Nora. You must stay awake. We're losing one twin's oxygen flow. I need to perform a laser procedure right now." "Do it," Nora whispered, tears streaming down her temples. Within minutes, she was rushed into the surgical suite. A bright light bathed her face as Dr. Marchand inserted the scope. "We're sealing the connecting vessel," the doctor said softly, voice steady as steel. Nora's consciousness wavered. She heard the machines beep and murmured weakly, "Please, save them. Take anything. Just save them." The room fell silent except for the rhythmic hiss of machines. Then, slowly, the monitors evened out. 2 small heartbeats, steady, defiant. Hours later, Nora woke in the recovery room, pale and trembling. Dr. Marchand sat beside her, exhaustion in her eyes but relief in her smile. "They're stable. You did it," she said, "but you must rest. Any stress now could undo everything." Nora nodded faintly. Her body felt hollow, but her spirit hardened. "Someone threatened my children," she said quietly. The doctor frowned. "Then we'll tighten security. No visitors except staff. Do you understand?" "Yes," Nora whispered. "And doctor, thank you." When Dr. Marchand left, Nora turned toward the window. Dawn was breaking over Geneva, soft pink and gold over the snowy Alps. The city seemed calm, but she knew better. Somewhere out there, Sloane Park, or whoever she'd hired, had tried to silence her. She opened her laptop and typed a message to Maya Patel. "Threat received. Twins survived. Proceed carefully." Minutes later, Maya replied with a single image, a court docket. It showed Nora's divorce officially closed and the marriage certificate of Adrian Kane and Sloane Park filed the same day. Beneath it, a note from Maya: "I found something in Discovery you never saw. Call me when safe." Nora exhaled shakily. Of course she timed it that way, she muttered. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Sloane sat in her penthouse office, the city glittering beneath her. Her phone buzzed. A private number flashed, Marcus Ames. "It's done?" she asked. He hesitated. "Define done." Her tone turned icy. "The warning was delivered." "Good," she snapped. "And the footage?" Marcus hesitated again. "That's more complicated. Someone's got backups. Cloud sync hit multiple IPs." Sloane's jaw clenched. "Then scrub it. All of it." "I don't care what it costs." "Already trying," Marcus said. "But if Geneva's involved, you might be too late." Sloane ended the call without another word, staring at her reflection in the glass. Beneath the flawless surface makeup, faint cracks were forming. Back in Geneva, Nora reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a small notebook. On the first page, she wrote one word: truth. Under it, she listed names: Sloane Park, Marcus Ames, Kane Quantum. Her hand trembled, but her eyes burned with purpose. "You tried to erase me," she murmured, "but I'm still here." She heard a soft knock at the door. It was Dr. Marchand again, holding 2 ultrasound images. "Would you like to see them?" the doctor asked. Nora smiled weakly as tears welled. 2 tiny forms curled together, alive. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll fight for them, whatever it takes." As she drifted back to sleep, snow began to fall outside, blanketing Geneva in silence. But in New York, miles away, Sloane Park's IT consultant plugged the stolen flash drive into his computer and froze at the file title, Saint-Tropez Part 2.mp4. The glow of the monitor bathed the dark Manhattan penthouse in blue light. Sloane Park leaned forward, her glass of Chardonnay untouched. On screen, the video file labeled Saint-Tropez Part 2.mp4 began to play. A shaky phone camera showed the inside of a dim parking garage. Marcus Ames, the same PR fixer, was standing by a silver Bentley, looking nervous. Sloane appeared seconds later, wearing sunglasses though it was clearly night. She reached into her designer purse and pulled out a small velvet pouch. The audio crackled. Sloane's voice: "This is the rest of it. Make sure the clinic deletes every record with Nora Leighton's name." Marcus nodded, glancing around. "You're asking for forgery, Sloane. That's federal." She smiled, cold and deliberate. "It's damage control. The world believes what we tell them." She tossed him the pouch. A Rolex watch clinked inside. Marcus's hand trembled as he pocketed it. "Consider that motivation," she said. The video cut to black. Sloane exhaled shakily, staring at her reflection in the black screen. Her hands were cold despite the warmth of the room. "Who filmed this?" she whispered. Behind her, the city lights flickered like restless stars. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "You can't bury everything, Sloane." Her throat tightened. She dialed Marcus instantly. "You told me that footage was destroyed." "It was." He snapped. "I wiped the drive myself." "Then explain this," she shouted. "Someone's playing us, and I won't go down alone." There was silence on the line, then a low sigh. "You always said no one needs to know the truth. Maybe it's finally finding you." Sloane hurled her phone across the room, glass shattering against marble. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, in Geneva, the hospital lights dimmed to evening mode. Nora sat upright in her bed, her laptop glowing faintly on the nightstand. She'd just finished reading Maya's latest message. Evidence recovered from clinic. Date altered, patient file forged. Source confirms connection to Park PR and Ames Consulting. Chain of custody pending. Nora reread the words 3 times. Proof. Finally proof. But proof wasn't safety, not yet. Dr. Marchand entered quietly. You're awake again. You should rest. I will, Nora said softly. Just making sure my children will have a world to come into. The doctor smiled gently. They are fighters, like their mother. When the door closed, Nora unlocked her phone and scrolled through old photos, her and Sloane laughing in Central Park, matching scarves, coffee cups in hand. How did you turn into this? She murmured. When did ambition start costing lives? Her email pinged again. An encrypted message from Rafael Ortiz, the retired NYPD officer Maya had hired for cyber investigation. We traced the payment trail. Park PR transferred $250,000 to Ames Consulting 3 days after the clinic's record edit. Timestamp verified. You were set up. Nora's eyes filled with tears she didn't have the energy to wipe away. You took my name, my marriage, my peace, she whispered. But you won't take my children. She backed up every file onto 3 clouds, a hidden drive, and one sent directly to Lena Ortiz at the New York Times. She titled the folder simply, The Truth About Sloane Park. Across the Atlantic, Sloane poured another glass of wine, trying to calm her shaking hands. She turned to her laptop again and opened her calendar, full of charity galas, press appearances, fake smiles. Then something new caught her eye. An unfamiliar folder that hadn't been there before. It was named Vault Sync. Auto upload. She clicked it, and the screen filled with thumbnail previews of every incriminating video she'd ever made. Her stomach dropped. Oh my God. At that same moment in her small hospital room, Nora whispered to the sleeping twins inside her. They think I'm weak. They have no idea what a mother can do. And as if answering her vow, her phone lit up with a notification. Incoming call. Graham Sterling. The ringtone shattered the silence of the hospital room. Nora jolted awake, still half dreaming, one hand instinctively resting on her belly. The caller ID read, Graham Sterling. Her pulse quickened. She answered, voice groggy. Graham? Don't panic, he said, his tone clipped. But something's moving fast online. Someone in Geneva leaked your patient file. Nora sat upright. What? How? I don't know yet, he continued. But gossip blogs in New York are posting headlines, billionaire's ex-wife pregnant in Swiss hospital. It's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. They even have your hospital's initials. Her blood turned cold. She swung her legs off the bed. My children, they'll turn this into a circus. You need to stay calm, Graham warned. Dr. Marchand is tightening security. I'm handling media containment, but you can't respond. Not a single statement. Understood, Nora said softly, though her throat burned. Across the Atlantic, Adrian Kane stared at his phone in disbelief. His board meeting froze mid-sentence as he read the trending headline aloud. Adrian Kane's ex expecting twins in Switzerland. The board members exchanged glances, unsure whether to speak. Adrian rose abruptly. I'll be back. He stepped into the hallway, dialing Sloane. She answered on the first ring, voice sugary sweet. Adrian, I saw the nonsense online. Don't tell me you believe it. Is it nonsense? He demanded. A pause. Darling, of course it is. Someone's exploiting your past. I asked you once, he said, voice breaking. Did you interfere with the paternity test? Her laughter was sharp, brittle. Adrian, you're tired. Don't start this again. Answer me. Another pause, colder this time. You're not seriously suggesting. I'm asking, he snapped, because if this leak is true, those might be my children. Silence stretched. Then Sloane said, even if they were, the world doesn't need another scandal. Think of the company. Think of our image. He exhaled slowly. Our image or yours? Before she could reply, he hung up. Back in Geneva, Nora stood by the window, watching dawn creep over the Alps. Her phone buzzed non-stop with messages, reporters, unknown numbers, even distant relatives she hadn't spoken to in years. She turned it off, pressed her forehead against the glass, and whispered, You will not break me again. Dr. Marchand entered quietly. We've increased your security. No visitors without authorization. Thank you, Nora murmured. But the damage is done. Then let them talk, the doctor said firmly. Your job is to protect those 2 lives. Later that afternoon, Nora sat with her laptop open, composing a letter addressed to her unborn children. Her words poured out like confession. My loves, the world will say your mother was a scandal. But truth doesn't need permission. When you're old enough, you'll know I never stopped fighting for you, even when the world called me crazy. She sealed the letter digitally, saving it under a folder titled For River and Rain. Meanwhile in New York, Sloan called her PR team. We're suing every outlet that mentions her name. I want cease and desist letters drafted by noon. Her assistant hesitated. But if the twins are his? Don't finish that sentence, Sloan hissed. We control the story, or we lose everything. At that same moment, Lena Ortiz, the investigative journalist from the New York Times, was scrolling through her inbox when an anonymous message arrived. The subject line read, Check W 45th Street Clinic, September 12th. Velvet pouch. She clicked it open. Attached were still frames from security footage showing Sloan Park and Marcus Ames in the clinic parking garage. Lena's pulse raced. She leaned back in her chair, whispering, Oh, Sloan, what did you do? Back in Geneva, Nora finally drifted into a fragile sleep. Machines hummed softly around her. Outside her room, a nurse scrolled through her phone, curiosity piqued by the day's gossip. She didn't notice the man in a black coat standing at the far end of the corridor, watching the door marked N. Leighton. He turned away, pulling out his phone, and texted a single line. She's still alive, awaiting next instructions. The newsroom at the New York Times buzzed like a beehive. Phones rang, printers clicked, and screens glowed with breaking updates about Nora Leighton's mysterious reappearance. At her cluttered desk, investigative journalist Lena Ortiz leaned forward, eyes narrowed at the paused video from the W 45th Street Clinic footage. There she was, Sloan Park, designer coat, dark sunglasses, whispering to Marcus Ames, her fixer. The velvet pouch changed hands in the dim garage, just as the anonymous email described. Lena froze the frame at 2014 and magnified it. The timestamp matched the payment record she'd uncovered hours earlier. She exhaled slowly. Got you. Her editor, a gruff man named Terrence, appeared over her shoulder. You're still on that Kane scandal? Lena nodded. There's more than scandal here. This is criminal fabrication, forged records, bribery, maybe worse. Terrence frowned. You've got to lock your sources. We can't publish if it's rumor. It's not rumor, Lena said, her voice hardening. It's truth. Meanwhile in Geneva, the hospital hallways were eerily quiet. Nora woke to the rhythmic drip of her IV and the soft hum of machinery. A nurse was replacing her saline bag when Nora noticed something strange. Her security badge had changed color. That's new, Nora said, half suspicious. The nurse smiled nervously. Updated protocol, Miss Leighton, for your safety. But when the nurse left, Nora's instincts screamed. She pulled the badge closer. It wasn't the hospital's design. Someone had switched it. Her heart pounded. She locked her door, then opened her laptop. An email notification blinked from Maya. We've confirmed the transfer from Park PR to Ames Consulting. Raphael says the encrypted drive was copied to multiple servers before deletion. We have everything. Nora's eyes widened. Everything, she whispered. Then another message appeared. This one from Lena Ortiz herself. Miss Leighton, my name is Lena Ortiz from the New York Times. I'm verifying evidence linking Sloan Park to document forgery and possible medical fraud. I believe you were her target. I'd like to protect your side before the story breaks. May I call you? Nora hesitated, hand trembling over the keyboard. If she replied, she'd expose her location. But if she didn't, Sloan would continue spinning the narrative unchecked. Finally, she typed, Call tomorrow. I'll give you truth. Across the ocean, Lena refreshed her inbox and smiled faintly. Tomorrow it is. At that very same moment, Sloan Park sat in her candlelit penthouse, scrolling through damage reports from her PR firm. Engagement dropping 18%, one assistant reported. Investors nervous about reputational risk. Sloan forced a smile. We'll fix it with a charity angle. Kane Foundation expands to help mothers in crisis. Draft something by morning. Marcus Ames called in, voice low and panicked. Sloan, you don't understand. There's a reporter digging into the clinic. Ortiz, she has footage. Sloan's tone went icy. Then handle it. Delete her hard drive, bribe her source, whatever it takes. I can't, Marcus said quietly. The files are mirrored through Times cloud servers. You can't erase a paper that's older than your lies. The line went dead. Sloan stared out the window, the Manhattan skyline shimmering in the distance. For the first time, her reflection frightened her. In Geneva, Nora leaned back against her pillow, exhaustion finally dragging her under. She dreamed of two tiny hands reaching for light, of water breaking over rocks, of safety. Then her phone vibrated. One message from Lena Ortiz got secondary confirmation from Graham Sterling. He's ready to go on record if you are. And below it, a final sentence that made Nora's blood run cold. Your hospital security has been compromised. Someone's trying to access your room file. Nora's eyes flew open. The hallway outside was silent, too silent. She reached for the call button, but the line was dead. A shadow moved beneath her door, and a quiet metallic click echoed, the lock turning from the outside. The metallic click echoed again, soft, deliberate. Nora's pulse thundered in her ears. She slid off the hospital bed, barefoot, one hand over her belly. The lights flickered. Outside, the hallway light dimmed, replaced by a faint glow from the nurse's station. Someone was out there. The handle turned once, slow testing. Then a voice whispered, "Miss Leighton, are you awake?" She froze. It wasn't Dr. Marchand or any nurse she knew. The voice was too calm, too polite. Nora grabbed the nearest object, a glass vase, and held it like a weapon. "Who's there?" No answer. The shadow moved again, retreating. Then footsteps, fading. Silence. Nora exhaled shakily. She hit the emergency button again, dead. They'd cut power to her room line. Panic clawed at her chest, but she forced herself to think clearly. Whoever it was, they hadn't gotten in. Yet. The door burst open suddenly. Nora flinched, then froze. It was Dr. Marchand, breathless, holding a small envelope. "You're safe," she said quickly. "Someone tampered with the network. Security's handling it." "Someone was outside my door," Nora whispered. "I know," the doctor said. "He's gone. The cameras caught him leaving through the side entrance. Police are on their way." Nora sank back onto the bed, trembling. "He was here to hurt me." Dr. Marchand handed her the envelope. "This arrived an hour ago from the United States consulate. I thought it could wait until morning, but maybe it shouldn't." Nora opened it slowly. Inside was a small velvet box. Her heart stilled as she lifted the lid. Her wedding ring. But different, the diamond was gone. In its place, a tiny gold star charm hung from a new chain. Beneath it, a note written in familiar, steady handwriting. "You don't owe him the past. You owe yourself a future." Nora's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in months, someone wasn't asking her to fight. They were reminding her she could rebuild. Dr. Marchand smiled softly. "You have friends who care deeply for you." "Yes," Nora whispered, "and enemies who are running out of time." Later that morning, she was discharged from the hospital under strict rest orders. Graham Sterling arranged for a private flat near Lake Geneva, a quiet space with thick walls and round-the-clock security. Nora stepped inside and felt the stillness wrap around her like a fragile promise. When she turned on the light, Graham was waiting, sitting on the sofa in a charcoal suit. "You look alive," he said. "I am," she replied. "Barely." He stood, setting a folder on the table. "I need to show you something, and I need you to be calm when you see it." Inside the folder was a printed copy of a non-compete clause, the contract she'd signed years ago while working for Kane Quantum. Her signature sat next to a line she'd never seen before: "All intellectual property to be credited under A. Kane Holdings." "That's my algorithm," Nora said slowly. "The predictive model I wrote during the beta tests." "Yes," Graham said. "The one that built the company's current valuation." Her stomach turned. "He stole it." "He let someone steal it for him," Graham corrected. "Sloan drafted this amendment right after your separation. It transferred every patent under Adrian's name." Nora's voice trembled, a mix of heartbreak and fury. "So while I was bleeding for his dream, they erased me on paper." Graham nodded. "But you can get it back. There's a loophole. If you're still legally identified as a contributor when the twins are born, you can reclaim authorship." She stared out the window at the lake, the snow falling like ash. "Then I'll claim it," she said quietly. "Not for revenge, for legacy." Graham studied her, then said, "There's one more thing." He slid a photo across the table. Sloan, at a New York gala, arm in arm with Marcus Ames. "They're tightening their circle. Whatever you're planning, move fast." Nora traced the edge of the photo with her finger. "Oh, I will," she said. "But not yet. They think I'm hiding. Let them." She glanced at the star charm around her neck, a faint smile touching her lips. "When I return, I want the world watching." Outside, unseen, a camera lens focused through the snow on her window, recording every word. Snow drifted like powdered glass outside the windows of Nora's apartment. The world was quiet, but her mind was a storm. The documents Graham left lay scattered across the table. Contracts, emails, and transfer memos, each proof that her name had been erased from the very invention that had built Kane Quantum. Her phone buzzed. It was Maya Patel, her attorney and oldest friend. "Tell me you've looked through the files," Maya said without preamble. "I have," Nora answered. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "It's all there. The predictive model, the algorithm that tracks user behavior. My code. My name deleted, and Sloane's initials next to every revision." "She took credit for your work," Maya confirmed, "and she used that model to boost Kane Quantum's IPO. Without it, Adrian's company would have been worth half." Nora stared at the snow falling outside, each flake a slow countdown of betrayal. "Do you realize what this means, Maya? They didn't just take my husband, they took my identity." On the other end, Maya's tone softened. "Then we take it back, legally and publicly." Nora hesitated. "That'll expose the twins." "Not if we control the narrative," Maya countered. "I'm filing an intellectual property reinstatement. You'll need to testify once you're medically cleared. But there's something else." "What?" Maya's voice lowered. Raphael traced a payment from Park PR to Ames Consulting. $250,000, exactly 1 day after the clinic incident. Nora froze. "Blood money." "Exactly. And he also found internal emails between Sloane and a notary, someone who handled the patent transfer. She bribed them to falsify timestamps. We can prove everything." Nora closed her eyes, breathing through the rising nausea. "You'll handle the filings?" "Already in motion," Maya said. "But Nora, this is more than revenge. This is war. Once we expose her, she'll come for you harder than ever." "Let her," Nora whispered. "I've got nothing left to lose." In New York, at that exact moment, Sloane Park sat in her corner office overlooking the East River. The light from the city glinted off her diamond wedding band as she scrolled through a message thread with Adrian. He hadn't responded in days. His last message read, "I'm going to Geneva." She slammed her laptop shut, rage bubbling beneath her polished surface. If he goes to her, everything unravels. Her assistant poked in timidly. "Mrs. Kane, the board wants to finalize next quarter's presentation." Sloane forced a smile. "Tell them I'm unavailable. Family emergency." When the assistant left, she called Marcus Ames. "She's still alive," Marcus said, "and she has backups of everything, even your clinic video." Sloane's tone was razor sharp. "Then leak something on her. Anything. Make her look unstable." Marcus hesitated. "That might be difficult. She's got allies now. Graham Sterling's involved." Sloane went pale. "The investor?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "And rumor is he's advising her legal team. If he testifies, you're done." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Then I'll have to make sure he doesn't." Back in Geneva, Nora set down her phone and opened her laptop. She began typing her story. Every betrayal, every falsified record, every stolen idea. But this wasn't for the press. It was for her children. "When you're old enough to read this, know that your mother didn't run away. She fought with the only weapons she had, truth and time." A knock sounded on her door. She tensed, then relaxed when she heard a familiar voice. "It's Graham." He stepped inside, carrying a warm bag of takeout and a cautious smile. "You've been working all night." "War doesn't wait for morning," she said, half smiling. He placed a USB drive on the table. Raphael's full chain of custody report, every file verified, it's airtight. Nora stared at the drive, a glint of determination lighting her tired eyes. "Then we're ready." Graham hesitated, then asked quietly, "You still love him, don't you?" She looked down, tracing the star charm around her neck. "I loved who I thought he was, but love doesn't excuse silence." He nodded. "Then let's make noise." Nora smiled faintly. "Oh, Graham, we'll make thunder." Across the ocean, Sloane Park's phone buzzed with a single text from Adrian. "I'm leaving tonight." And for the first time, Sloane realized her perfect empire was cracking from within. Snow whipped across the Geneva tarmac as the private jet's engines cooled. Adrian Kane stepped onto the slick ground, his overcoat whipping in the wind. He hadn't slept in 40 hours. Every mile between New York and Switzerland had been a slow punishment, replaying every choice that led him here. The silence, the betrayal, the wedding he never should have had. The car waiting for him belonged to Graham Sterling. The driver handed him an address, a single line, Rue du Lac 14. Adrian's hands trembled slightly as he typed it into his phone. He didn't need directions. He knew where she was. 20 minutes later, he stood outside the modest stone building. No cameras, no guards, just one door between him and the woman he'd failed. He knocked. Inside, Nora froze. She knew that knock. For a moment she couldn't move. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. She looked down at her loose sweater stretched over her belly, her visible truth. When she opened the door, she didn't remove the chain. Adrian stood there, thinner than she remembered, his eyes bloodshot, his expression raw. For once there was no arrogance, no polished charm, just a man stripped bare. "Nora," he breathed, "you look—" "Don't," she said quietly. "Not that word. Not after everything." He nodded, stepping back as if distance could undo damage. "I didn't know where else to go." "You could have gone home," she said coldly. He gave a small broken laugh. "That isn't home anymore." Silence stretched between them. The wind howled outside like an old ghost refusing to die. Finally, she spoke. "What do you want, Adrian?" His voice cracked. "To see you, to ask if it's true." His eyes flicked toward her belly. "If they're mine," she interrupted. "That's all that matters." He swallowed. "Please, I need to know." After a long moment, she unlatched the chain and stepped aside. "Then come in and listen. But you don't get to talk until I'm done." He entered quietly. The apartment smelled of chamomile tea and cold air. Papers covered the coffee table, legal drafts, medical forms, contracts. Her war mapped out in ink. "I nearly died," she began. "They call it twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. The surgery saved them, barely. While you were marrying my best friend, I was praying for 2 heartbeats to stay alive." Adrian's eyes glistened. "I didn't know. Sloane told me you'd—" "She told you I ended the pregnancy," Nora cut in sharply. "And you believed her." He lowered his head. "I wanted to ask. I tried to send the test, but she said it would destroy everything. The IPO, the press, the company." "The company," Nora repeated, bitterness cutting through her voice. "You chose your empire over your family." He stepped closer, desperate. "I chose wrong. I see that now." Nora's breath trembled. For a heartbeat, the room was still. 2 broken people standing amid the wreckage of what once was love. "Do you even understand what you took from me?" she whispered. "My name, my work, my dignity." Adrian nodded, tears finally spilling. "Yes, and I will spend the rest of my life giving it back, piece by piece." Nora stared at him, searching his face for sincerity. Slowly, she placed his hand on her stomach. A small flutter responded from within. Adrian gasped, a choked sob catching in his throat. "Hi," he whispered. "I'm your very late dad." Nora's voice softened, but her eyes stayed hard. "If you want to be their father, start with the truth. Tell the world what you did, what she did." He nodded. "I will." "Then go," she said, "before she realizes you're gone." Outside, his driver waited. As Adrian climbed in, he called Graham. "Prepare a statement. Sloane Park's reign ends tomorrow." Back in Manhattan, Sloane's phone buzzed on her vanity. She opened her tracking app and froze. Adrian's location dot blinked thousands of miles away. Her smile vanished. "He's in Geneva," she whispered. "With her." Geneva's sky was the color of pewter, heavy with the promise of snow. On the balcony of her small apartment, Nora wrapped herself in a wool blanket and stared at the frozen lake below. The city lights shimmered faintly, soft and distant, like memories that refused to fade. Inside, Adrian Kane stood at the window, watching her. He had arrived broken and sleepless, and now, standing here, he seemed even smaller than the legend his company had built. "You should sit," Nora said without turning. "The altitude will get to you if the guilt doesn't." He tried to smile but failed. "You always had a way of making mercy sound like punishment." "Because you confuse apology with action," she replied, finally facing him. "You flew across the world, Adrian, but have you actually changed?" He swallowed. "I'm trying." "Trying won't save you," she said. "Truth will." He stepped out onto the balcony beside her. The wind bit through his coat. "Then I'll give you the truth. All of it." She crossed her arms. "Start from Saint-Tropez." His jaw tightened. "I overheard Sloane and Marcus that night. She told him you'd become a liability, that if your pregnancy leaked, the board would see it as weakness. She said the word leverage." Nora's breath hitched, a tremor of both anger and heartbreak. "And you still married her." "I was afraid," Adrian admitted. "The IPO was days away. She said she could handle the optics, keep investors calm. I thought I could fix things quietly afterward. You thought wrong. He looked out at the lake. When I realized she forged your medical file, I confronted her. She denied everything. And then the wedding press hit, and suddenly I was trapped inside the image she built. Nora's voice cracked, softer now. You could have called me. One phone call would have changed everything. I know, he whispered, but I was a coward. I let her bury you because it was easier than facing my own shame. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind rattling the balcony railing. Finally, Nora said quietly, "Do you want redemption or forgiveness?" He looked at her, surprised. Is there a difference? There's every difference, she said. Redemption is about what you do next. Forgiveness is about what I let go of. You don't get both. Adrian nodded slowly. Then I'll settle for redemption. Dr. Marchand appeared in the doorway, breaking the heavy silence. Miss Leighton, your blood pressure's rising. You need to rest. Nora turned toward Adrian. You heard the doctor. Go back to your hotel. I'm not leaving until I make this right, he insisted. Her voice sharpened. You can't make it right by standing here. He hesitated, then stepped forward, taking her hand. Tell me what to do. She studied him for a moment. Go home. Fire the fixer. Preserve the board emails. Give my attorney access to the patent records. Then disappear from Sloane's calendar. She can't destroy what she can't find. He nodded. Consider it done. She released his hand. When this is over, you'll tell the world the truth. Not for me, for them. She gestured toward her belly. Adrian's eyes softened. I promise. He turned toward the door, then looked back one last time. You used to say every story has a second act. Is this ours? Nora didn't answer right away. That depends on how yours ends, she said quietly. He left. Nora stayed on the balcony, the cold air biting her cheeks, watching the car's headlights vanish into the night. Down on the street below, another car door opened. A woman stepped out, sleek, composed, the wind tugging at her dark hair. Sloane Park looked up at the balcony, eyes locked on the light still burning in Nora's apartment. Her lips curled into a smile. Lights on, she murmured. Perfect timing for the cameras. Snowflakes swirled around the entryway as Sloane Park stepped out of the black car, her heels clicking on the icy pavement. Behind her trailed a two-man camera crew carrying compact lights and microphones disguised as documentary equipment. She adjusted her fur-lined coat, pasted on her media smile, and whispered, We're shooting lifestyle footage. If anyone asks, it's for a charity piece. The cameraman nodded. Understood, Mrs. Kane. From the fourth-floor balcony, Nora Leighton watched the scene below, her breath fogging the glass. Even at this distance, she recognized Sloane's predatory calm, the same expression she'd worn while betraying her. Dr. Marchand entered the room behind her. You should be lying down, Nora. Your vitals aren't stable. I'm fine, Nora said tightly. But she's here, and she brought a performance. Downstairs, Sloane buzzed the building's intercom. Nora, darling, it's Sloane. I came all this way to talk woman to woman. Let's end this properly. Nora's pulse raced. She pressed the intercom button. And what? The part where you faked my medical record, or the part where you stole my husband? Oh, sweetheart, Sloane purred, voice dripping with practiced sympathy. You're unwell. People are saying terrible things. Let me help you fix the narrative. The only thing that needs fixing, Nora said coldly, is your conscience. She released the button. Upstairs, Dr. Marchand crossed her arms. What's she doing? Fishing for a reaction, Nora said. But she won't get one. Except Sloane wasn't leaving. She gestured to the camera crew, whispering, roll. Then she raised her voice. You see? She's unstable. She needs medical care. This poor woman believes in conspiracies. The cameraman hesitated, uncomfortable. Ma'am, this doesn't feel right. Keep filming, she snapped. Suddenly, a flash from across the street caught her attention. Another camera, Lena Ortiz, the New York Times reporter, was documenting everything from a cafe window. She zoomed in, capturing Sloane shouting at a locked door, her voice rising, her mask slipping. Inside, Nora watched it unfold on her phone through Lena's live feed. She smiled faintly. Perfect timing, Lena. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Maya Patel met with Graham Sterling at the plaza's Palm Court. Rafael Ortiz sat beside them, laptop open, screen glowing with timestamps and bank records. Maya leaned forward. This is everything? Everything, Rafael confirmed. Payment trail, encrypted drives, the clinic footage, even the bribe receipts. It's enough for the Department of Justice. Graham nodded. Then it's time. We go public. Maya exhaled. Nora deserves to see justice, not just survival. Back in Geneva, Sloane's performance was unraveling. Her smile cracked under the weight of her own lies. The building's doorman approached. Madam, I must ask you to leave. The tenant upstairs has medical restrictions. Sloane turned on him. Do you know who I am? Yes, he said calmly. That's why I'm asking politely. As she stormed toward her car, Lena followed at a distance, snapping photos. She sent a quick message to Maya. Sloane Park caught harassing patient. Photos attached. By midnight, those photos and snippets of the clinic footage had reached half the newsrooms in New York. Sloane watched helplessly from her hotel suite as headlines spread across Twitter. Kane PR queen faces medical fraud allegations. Exclusive, the Saint-Tropez connection. Her hands shook. No, this isn't happening. Marcus Ames called. They've got the whole trail. You need to run. Run, she hissed. I built this empire. Then watch it burn, he said before hanging up. The next morning, Geneva's sunrise painted the lake in gold. Nora sipped her tea, exhausted but peaceful for the first time in months. Her phone buzzed. Maya's message. Lena's story goes live tomorrow. You did it, Nora. Nora smiled weakly, touching her stomach. We're almost free. But outside, a man in a gray coat stepped from a parked van. He held a small remote in one hand and looked up at her window before lighting a cigarette. Moments later, the faint scent of smoke drifted through the hallway. Flames began to lick at the edges of Nora's door. Smoke curled beneath the apartment door like a living shadow. At first, Nora thought it was a dream, the faint crackle, the slow hiss, but then came the sting in her lungs. She coughed, gasped, and reality crashed in. Fire! Dr. Marchand screamed from the hallway. Alarms erupted, shrill and chaotic. Nora tried to stand, but the twins pressed heavily against her lungs. The room blurred. She grabbed the go-bag by her bed, passport, flash drives, the star charm, and stumbled toward the window. Outside, flames climbed the stairwell. The building's power flickered out. Nora? Dr. Marchand burst through the smoke, face covered with a damp cloth. The exits are blocked. We have to move. Down the service corridor, Nora wheezed. It leads to the loading dock. They half ran, half stumbled through choking black haze. Somewhere below, firefighters were already shouting in French. Sirens wailed closer, echoing off the lake. A paramedic caught them at the stairwell, leading them out into freezing air. Nora collapsed against the ambulance door, coughing until her vision steadied. The babies, she gasped. They're all right, Dr. Marchand said, checking the monitor strapped to Nora's wrist. They're fighters, just like you. As firefighters doused the flames, one of them approached with a grim face. Someone started this deliberately. We found accelerant near the door. Nora felt the blood drain from her face. She did this, she whispered. Sloane did this. Hours later at the hospital, Nora lay under observation, wrapped in blankets, oxygen mask pressed to her face. Her phone vibrated, Maya Patel calling. Maya, Nora croaked. Thank God you're alive, Maya breathed. We saw the reports. Geneva police confirmed arson. You're under protection now, do you hear me? Nora's voice was a rasp. She's trying to erase me, even now. She's failing, Maya said fiercely. Because we have everything we need. Lena's article goes live in 2 hours, but she wants your final approval, your statement. The world deserves to hear your voice. Nora closed her eyes. For so long, others had told her story. Adrian, Sloane, the tabloids. This time, it would come from her. Put me through to her, Nora said. A few seconds later, Lena Ortiz's voice came through, low and steady. Miss Leighton, I want you to know you don't owe anyone this. We can publish without your name, if you prefer. No, Nora said. They took enough from me. They don't get my silence, too. All right, Lena said softly. What do you want to say? Nora took a long breath and spoke from the rawest part of herself. Tell them I was never the villain. I was a woman who trusted the wrong people. I believed in love, in partnership, in truth, and they turned that into headlines. I lost my marriage, my career, my peace, but I won't lose my children to their lies. Tell them I forgive, but I don't forget. There was a pause on the line, then Lena said quietly, That's going on the record. When the call ended, Nora felt lighter, as if speaking the truth had drawn out years of poison. 2 hours later, the article hit the world like an earthquake. The New York Times exclusive. The Saint-Tropez deception, how lies built a billion-dollar marriage. It trended across every platform within minutes. Screens lit up with side-by-side photos, Sloane's luxury galas against clinic receipts, her fake timelines exposed. In New York, Sloane awoke to a flurry of notifications. Her phone exploded with calls, publicists, lawyers, journalists. Her empire was collapsing in real time. Adrian Kane's name appeared next on her screen. She answered, voice shaking. "Adrian, it's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like," he said coldly. "I've read every word. I'm resigning first thing tomorrow. And I'm testifying." "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "You dared first," he said, and hung up. Across the ocean, Nora sat quietly as dawn crept through the window. Dr. Marchand entered, holding her newborn letter from Lena, the article's front page with her quote in bold. "Congratulations," the doctor said softly. "You burned brighter than their fire." Nora smiled weakly, whispering, "Now the world finally knows." But her phone buzzed again, an unknown number, and a single message that chilled her blood. "Truth is expensive, Nora. Hope you can afford what comes next." The next morning, Manhattan looked frozen under the pale January light. Inside Kane Quantum's mirrored headquarters, tension rippled through the 42nd floor boardroom. Executives whispered in small clusters, eyes darting toward the empty chair at the head of the table, Adrian Kane's seat. On the glass wall, a massive screen displayed the New York Times headline, "The St. Tropez Deception, Medical Fraud and Corporate Bribery Inside Kane Quantum." Stock tickers scrolled red beneath it. Sloane Park entered like a storm in designer heels, sunglasses hiding the exhaustion around her eyes. "Turn that off," she snapped at the AV technician. "We don't give oxygen to lies." But the murmurs didn't stop. The room buzzed with restrained panic. "Mrs. Kane," said Richard Lum, the company's legal counsel, "we've received notice of a federal inquiry. The SEC and DOJ both want immediate cooperation." Sloane forced a brittle smile. "Then we cooperate. I'll handle the press. Adrian will issue a statement defending us." The room fell silent. Richard cleared his throat. "That may be complicated." Before she could ask why, the glass door slid open, and Adrian Kane walked in. He looked different. Calmer, older, carrying the weight of everything he'd lost but none of the arrogance that once defined him. He set a briefcase on the table. "Good morning," he said evenly. Sloane's voice trembled. "Adrian, thank God. We can fix this together." He shook his head. "No, Sloane, we're not fixing this. We're facing it." Gasps echoed. Adrian opened his briefcase and handed out printed documents, emails, financial transfers, clinic receipts. "Every board member will receive a copy of this evidence. It shows who authorized the bribes, who falsified medical records, and who manipulated our stock price for personal gain." Sloane's mask cracked. "You can't be serious. You're handing them." "The truth," he interrupted. "Something this company's forgotten how to handle." Richard Lum turned to Sloane. "Mrs. Kane, your name appears on all of these. We'll need your statement on the record." Her voice rose, desperate. "This is a setup. He's protecting that woman, his ex-wife. She's been manipulating him." Adrian's expression hardened. "The only one who manipulated anyone was you. You forged documents to erase Nora's work, framed her as unstable, and nearly killed her to keep her silent." Gasps filled the room. Sloane's composure shattered. "I did everything for you," she screamed. "For the company, for the image that made you billions." He met her gaze. "You did it for yourself." He turned to the board. "Effective immediately, I'm calling for an emergency vote to suspend Sloane Park from her role as Chief Communications Officer, pending investigation." "Seconded," said Graham Sterling, who had quietly entered moments earlier. "All in favor?" Adrian asked. Hands rose, one by one, every single one. Sloane stared at the sea of raised hands, her own trembling. "You can't do this to me. I made Kane Quantum what it is." Adrian stood. "And now you'll answer for what it became." Security approached. She backed away, shaking her head. "This isn't over, Adrian." "It's been over for a long time," he said quietly. As the guards escorted her out, Sloane's fury twisted into something dark and dangerous. She yanked free just long enough to hiss, "If I burn, I'm taking you with me." The doors closed behind her. Adrian let out a long breath and addressed the board. "We'll cooperate fully with federal investigators. I'll issue a statement tonight announcing my resignation as CEO." Graham frowned. "You're stepping down?" "I have to," Adrian said. "Redemption means accountability. I can't lead what I broke." Outside the tower, cameras already waited. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Nora Leighton watched the live stream from her hospital room. The nurse turned up the volume as Adrian spoke at the press podium. "I failed the woman who helped build this company. I failed our integrity, but the truth stands taller than profit ever will. This is my apology. And my beginning." Nora's eyes filled with tears. She didn't fight this time. But in the corner of the feed, she saw something the cameras missed. Sloane Park, slipping into a black sedan, eyes burning with vengeance. And on her phone screen, a single word flashed from an unknown sender. "Tonight." Geneva was quiet that night. Too quiet. The snow had stopped, leaving the city coated in white stillness, but Nora couldn't shake the unease crawling beneath her skin. The twins kicked softly, restless under her ribs. She sat by the window of her temporary flat, watching lights shimmer over Lake Geneva. The world outside looked peaceful, but she knew peace was always the first illusion before the storm. Her phone vibrated on the table. One message. From unknown. "You should have stayed silent." Nora's blood ran cold. She reached for the phone to call Maya, but before she could, the building lights flickered. Then, everything went black. For a moment, there was only silence. Then came the smell. Sharp, chemical, wrong. Smoke. It seeped under the door, curling into the room like a warning. The twins jolted inside her belly, reacting to the stress pulsing through her veins. "Not again," Nora whispered, grabbing her go-bag. She tried to stand, but pain knifed through her abdomen. She stumbled, bracing herself against the wall. The emergency lights blinked to life, red and weak. Outside her door, footsteps echoed, heavy, deliberate, moving closer. Her phone lit up again, a new message. "You wanted the truth. Here's what it costs." Then came a metallic clang, the sound of a lock breaking. Nora's breath caught. She backed toward the window. But before she could decide, the door burst open, flames licking at the walls behind it. Through the smoke, a familiar voice shouted, "Nora?" She froze. "Adrian?" He appeared through the haze, coughing, his jacket over his mouth. He reached for her. "We have to go, now." She stumbled into his arms, gasping for air. "How did you?" "I tracked your address after the press conference," he said, voice hoarse. "I had a bad feeling." The ceiling groaned above them. Fire spread fast along the corridor. Adrian guided her toward the stairwell, shielding her from falling debris. "Slow down," she gasped, pain slicing through her side. "You can do this," he said, tightening his grip. For them. By the time they reached the ground floor, the entrance was blocked by burning debris. Adrian pulled her toward a side exit, forcing the metal door open with his shoulder. They stumbled into the freezing air as sirens wailed in the distance. Firefighters rushed past them, shouting in French. One turned toward Nora. "Madam, did you see anyone else inside?" She shook her head weakly. "Just fire and fear." Adrian wrapped her in his coat, pulling her close. "It's over," he said softly, though his voice trembled. But Nora's eyes darkened. "No, it's just beginning. This wasn't random." As paramedics guided her into the ambulance, Dr. Marchand arrived, pale but steady. "We need to monitor you immediately. The baby's heart rates are unstable." Adrian tried to follow, but the doctor blocked him. "She needs calm, not chaos." Nora met his eyes through the open ambulance door. "Find out who did this," she said, "and make them pay." He nodded. "I promise." Back in New York, Sloane Park poured herself another drink in her penthouse, watching live coverage of the Geneva fire. Her reflection in the glass was calm, composed, until the phone on her desk vibrated. "Message from Marcus Ames. You went too far." She survived. Sloane's hand shook. She deleted the message and stared into the night. "Then it's time to end this properly." At that exact moment, Adrian's phone buzzed in his pocket while he stood outside the Geneva hospital. He pulled it out and read the message that made his stomach twist. From Graham Sterling. Interpol confirmed the van's plate. It was rented by Ames PR under Sloane Park's authorization. Adrian looked up at the glowing hospital windows, his reflection framed by the flashing lights. "You wanted redemption," he murmured to himself. "Now earn it." Inside the ambulance, Nora lay still as the sirens wailed toward the hospital. The star charm on her neck glimmered faintly against her skin. She whispered to her unborn children, "Hold on, my loves. Justice is coming." And behind them, the building collapsed in a roar of smoke and steel. The sirens wailed across Geneva as the ambulance tore through the icy streets. Inside, Nora lay on the gurney, one hand clutching her belly, the other gripping the edge of the stretcher. The paramedic's French instructions blurred together, but one phrase broke through. Contractions every 2 minutes. Her mind reeled. Not now. Not like this. Dr. Marchand leaned over her, calm but urgent. You're going into labor, Nora. The stress triggered it. Listen to me. We'll take care of you. Focus on breathing. Nora nodded weakly, gasping as another contraction tore through her. Please, just save them. Both of them, the doctor said firmly. We'll do everything. The hospital doors burst open as they arrived. Nurses rushed her into surgery, the world flashing by in blinding white lights. The oxygen mask came down. The last thing Nora saw before blacking out was Dr. Marchand's steady eyes. When she woke, the world was still. Dim light filtered through the blinds. Her body felt hollow, heavy. A soft cry broke the silence. Then another. 2 voices, fragile but alive. Dr. Marchand entered, eyes rimmed with exhaustion and relief. They're here, she whispered. You have 2 beautiful babies, a boy and a girl. They're small but strong. Nora's throat closed. Tears slid down her cheeks as the doctor placed the swaddled infants into her arms. The boy's tiny hand curled around her finger. The girl's mouth rooted gently against the blanket. Hello, my loves, Nora whispered, voice trembling. Welcome to the world. They'll need monitoring for a few weeks, Dr. Marchand said softly. But they're fighters, just like their mother. Nora smiled faintly. River and Rain, she murmured. That's their names. Outside the room, Adrian stood behind the glass, hands pressed against it, eyes red and wet. He watched as Nora rocked the twins, her face glowing with the fragile peace of survival. A security guard appeared beside him. Mr. Kane, the Geneva police want to speak with you. They've found the van responsible for the fire. Adrian turned sharply. And? It was rented under Ames PR's credentials, the guard said. Interpol traced the payment to Sloan Park's corporate card. Adrian's stomach twisted. She tried to kill them. He called Graham immediately. Send everything you have to the authorities. I don't care about fallout. She's done. Graham's voice came through steady. I already did. The DOJ and Interpol are coordinating. Sloan won't get far. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Sloan Park sat in her darkened penthouse, news channels muted. A breaking banner scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Arson investigation links Sloan Park to attempted homicide. Her fingers clenched around a glass of whiskey. No, she whispered. They can't prove it. But then her doorbell rang. When she opened it, federal agents stood waiting, badges gleaming under the hall light. Sloan Park, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and attempted murder. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Cameras flashed as they led her away in handcuffs. Back in Geneva, Nora was finally allowed to rest. The twins slept in the neonatal ward, their soft cries now steady breaths. She woke to find Adrian sitting in a chair beside her bed, still in the same clothes from the fire. You should sleep, she said softly. I can't, he admitted. Not until I thank you. For what? For surviving, he said simply. For bringing them here. For giving me a second chance to do something right. Nora studied him for a long moment. You don't get a second chance with me, Adrian, but you can be the father they deserve. He nodded. That's all I want. She reached for his hand. Then start by protecting them from the world we built. As dawn broke, the first golden light spilled into the room, catching the star charm at Nora's throat. She looked down at River and Rain sleeping peacefully and whispered, You're safe now. But somewhere deep inside, she knew safety was only temporary. Truth had more enemies than she could count. And as the hospital monitors beeped in rhythm, Adrian's phone buzzed with a new message. She's escaped custody. The corridor outside the neonatal unit was washed in dim gold light. Machines hummed softly, monitors blinked green, and the scent of disinfectant hung in the air. It was 3 a.m., the hour when hospitals feel suspended between life and death, between what was lost and what could still be saved. Nora Leighton shuffled slowly down the hallway, one hand on her IV pole, the other brushing the cold wall for balance. Her body ached, but her spirit burned steady. Through the observation window, she saw them. River and Rain, 2 tiny bundles of life sleeping in glass cribs, their chests rising and falling in perfect rhythm. She smiled faintly, whispering, You did it, my loves. You made it. A soft voice behind her replied, They didn't do it alone. Nora turned. Adrian sat slumped on the floor, back against the wall, surrounded by a dozen paper cranes made from hospital forms. His hair was tousled, his suit jacket wrinkled, eyes hollow but alive. "What are you doing?" Nora asked gently. He held up one of the cranes. "My mother used to fold these when my father was in chemo. She said every 100 cranes grant one wish." Nora knelt carefully beside him. "And what are you wishing for?" He gave a small, tired laugh. "Redemption, though I'm only at 72. She studied him quietly. "You're exhausted?" "So are you," he said. "But you keep standing." "That's what mothers do," she whispered. "We stand, even when everything else collapses." Adrian looked toward the nursery window. "They look like you," he said softly. "The little one, Rain, she frowns in her sleep the same way you did when you were reading contracts at 2 a.m. Nora smiled, despite herself. "And River?" "He clenches his fists like he's ready to fight the world," Adrian said. "That one's definitely mine." For a long time, silence wrapped around them, gentle, fragile, almost peaceful. Then Adrian spoke again, voice low. "I need to ask you something," he said. "Not as your ex-husband, but as their father." "Go on." "I want a co-parent," he said simply. "I'll never ask for forgiveness, but I'll be there for them. Every school recital, every fever, every heartbreak. They'll know they're loved." Nora's eyes softened. "And what about Sloane?" he exhaled. "Interpol issued an international warrant, but she's gone off-grid. Private jet left Paris under a false name. They'll find her. It's only a matter of time." Nora's hand tightened on the IV pole. "She won't stop until she ruins everything." "Then we stop her first," Adrian said. "I'll testify. I'll give every file, every document, every confession. No lawyers, no NDAs, just truth." Nora looked at him carefully, searching for cracks in his resolve. For once, she saw none. "Do you know what that means?" she asked. "It means losing everything I built," he said quietly. "But it also means giving our children a father they can be proud of." She nodded slowly. "Then you'll need to see a therapist. You'll cooperate with the authorities. You'll sign over a share of Kane Quantum to a trust for River and Rain, and you'll never let fear be your reason again." He smiled weakly. "You still sound like my lawyer." "No," Nora said softly. "Like the woman who used to believe you could be good." He lowered his gaze. "Maybe I still can." A nurse passed by, pausing to glance at them. "You two should rest," she said kindly. Nora stood, gripping Adrian's hand. "Come," she whispered. "They should know their father's face." Together they stepped into the NICU. Adrian stood beside the incubators, eyes wet as he watched his children breathe. He placed a trembling hand against the glass. "Hi, River," he whispered. "Hi, Rain. I'm your dad. I'm a mess, but I'm here." Nora rested her head on his shoulder. For the first time in years, there was no anger, no blame. Just two parents staring at a miracle they almost lost. Then Nora's phone vibrated on the tray table. One message glowed on screen. "Flight manifest found. Sloane Park en route to New York." Nora looked at Adrian, her voice steady. "Then that's where we finish this." And for the first time, Adrian didn't flinch. He simply nodded and said, "Together." New York shimmered under winter rain. The streets slick with light from courthouse lamps. Reporters crowded outside 100 Center Street, umbrellas colliding as flashes burst like miniature lightning. Inside, the air was colder, tense, expectant. Nora Leighton sat in the gallery, a silk scarf covering the fading bruises on her arm from the Geneva fire. Beside her, Maya Patel held a folder thick with evidence, while Graham Sterling adjusted his tie, calm as ever. Across the aisle, Sloane Park entered in a crimson suit, wrists cuffed, chin high. Cameras followed her every move. The courtroom doors closed, silence fell. "All rise," the clerk said. Judge Holloway entered, gray-haired and sharp-eyed. "Let's proceed," he said, voice firm. "Case 42B, the People versus Sloane Park." Sloane's attorney, a smooth-talking man in an Italian suit, stood. "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. These accusations are baseless and fueled by personal vendetta." Maya rose next. "The prosecution calls Adrian Kane." Gasps rippled through the room. Sloane's head jerked up, disbelief cutting through her poise. Adrian walked in, clean-shaven, eyes steady, carrying a single worn notebook, Nora's old project log. "Mr. Kane," Maya began, "can you explain what this is?" Adrian opened the notebook. "This is the original prototype of Kane Quantum's predictive algorithm, written entirely by Nora Leighton. It's her handwriting, her code, her signature, but 3 years ago it was registered under my name." Maya stepped closer. "Did you knowingly remove her authorship?" Adrian swallowed. "No, Sloane Park orchestrated it. She convinced me it was temporary, an image decision for investors. I didn't realize she'd filed permanent documentation under A. Kane Holdings. Sloane slammed her palms on the table. Liar, the judge's gavel cracked. Order. Adrian met Sloane's glare. You destroyed her reputation, forged medical records, and nearly killed her to keep your story clean. Sloane's lawyer jumped in. Objection. Unsubstantiated claims. Overruled, the judge snapped. Continue, Mr. Kane. Adrian's voice broke slightly. When I saw her lying in that hospital bed with our children, I realized the truth. Everything Sloane built was theft dressed as strategy. The room went silent again. Maya held up a USB drive. Your Honor, this contains financial transfers from Park PR to Ames Consulting, plus CCTV footage from the W45th Street Clinic, Sloane Park, paying to falsify medical records. The footage played on the courtroom screen. The velvet pouch, the bribe, Sloane's voice whispering, delete every trace of her name. Gasps echoed. A woman in the jury covered her mouth. Sloane's mask cracked for the first time. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she muttered. Maya's tone was ice. You mean the fire in Geneva? Sloane froze. Interpol traced the van to your PR firm, Maya continued. Your assistant testified under oath. We have the receipts. You tried to burn her alive. Judge Holloway turned to the defense. Counselor? Sloane's lawyer slumped. No further questions. The judge faced the jury. We'll recess for deliberation. As the jurors filed out, Nora stood slowly. Her legs shook, but her gaze was steady. Sloane looked at her across the room, eyes wild. You think you've won? You can't erase me? Nora met her stare. I don't need to erase you, Sloane. The truth already did. Minutes later, the jury returned. On all counts, fraud, obstruction of justice, and attempted homicide, we find the defendant guilty. The gavel struck. Sloane's body went limp, as officers moved in. She screamed once, voice breaking through the marble hall. Adrian, you'll regret this. But Adrian didn't look back. He turned toward Nora, silent tears in his eyes. Outside, reporters swarmed as they stepped into the cold. Flashbulbs popped, voices shouted, but none of it mattered. Graham placed a hand on Nora's shoulder. It's over. Nora shook her head softly. No, it's beginning. Hours later, at a press conference, Adrian stood beside her. Cameras rolled as he said, I'm resigning as CEO of Kane Quantum. I will dedicate my shares to a new ethics foundation and to the woman whose work built everything. He looked at Nora. Miss Leighton, will you accept leadership of innovation? She hesitated, then smiled faintly. For the future's sake, yes. As applause filled the room, a courier entered quietly, handing Adrian an envelope. He opened it, read, and froze. It was from the board. Appointment confirmed. Nora Leighton, interim head of innovation. Nora exhaled, a lifetime of battles collapsing into one breath. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and silent. The world's quiet way of saying justice had finally come. 1 year later, the chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel shimmered like constellations. Outside, limousines lined Fifth Avenue, their engines purring under a cold spring drizzle. Inside the ballroom, hundreds of guests clinked glasses under banners that read, Kane Quantum Foundation, Ethics and Innovation Gala. The world had changed in 12 months. Sloane Park was serving a 12-year sentence in Bedford Hills. Adrian Kane had stepped down from every corporate title and become chairman of a new nonprofit focused on corporate transparency. And Nora Leighton, once the ghost of a scandal, now stood at the center of it all, alive, restored, and radiant. She arrived quietly, dressed in a white sheath gown, her hair pinned in soft waves. Around her neck, the gold star charm gleamed, a small symbol of every scar she'd survived. But it was the two children holding her hands, River and Rain, now toddling with curious eyes, that turned every head in the room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed, someone whispered, That's her. The woman who exposed the truth. Nora smiled faintly, unfazed. She had learned that silence was more powerful than spectacle. From across the ballroom, Graham Sterling approached, looking sharp in a navy tuxedo. I knew you'd come, he said warmly. I couldn't hide forever, she replied. Besides, this is our night, the Foundation's first anniversary. He nodded toward the stage. Your speech is trending online already. People want to hear you talk about rebuilding integrity. Let them, she said. The world could use a reminder that honesty doesn't make you weak, it makes you unstoppable. Nearby, Maya Patel clinked glasses with Lena Ortiz, who was covering the event for the New York Times. Who would have thought, Maya said. From courtrooms to champagne. Lena smiled. Truth has a funny way of dressing up for its victory lap. At that moment, the orchestra began to play softly. Adrian Kane entered through the side doors, tuxedo crisp, his expression solemn yet peaceful. Conversations hushed as he crossed the room toward Nora. For a moment, the air shifted. The weight of everything they'd been and everything they'd lost hung between them. "Congratulations, Nora," Adrian said gently. "You made this possible." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "We both did in our own ways." He smiled sadly. "You were right that day in Geneva. Redemption isn't forgiveness, but I think I finally understand both." Nora studied him, then extended a hand. "Then welcome to the human race." He chuckled softly, accepting her hand. "Mind if I say hello to them?" She nodded. Adrian knelt, meeting the twins' eyes. "Hi, River. Hi, Rain. Do you know how brave your mom is?" River blinked solemnly. Rain giggled, tugging his tie. "They've got your stubbornness," Nora teased. "And your fire," he replied. The orchestra swelled as the evening's host announced from the stage, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nora Leighton, Head of Innovation and founder of the Marchand Initiative, dedicated to ethical technology for future generations." Applause thundered. Nora stepped onto the stage, lights bathing her in gold. She began softly, voice calm but resolute. "A year ago, I thought my story ended in ashes. But the truth is, every ending is an invitation to rise. Tonight isn't about scandal or survival. It's about creation, about what we build when we refuse to let greed define genius." She glanced at the crowd, her gaze pausing on Maya, Graham, and Adrian. "No innovation matters if it costs our humanity. The future isn't built by algorithms, it's built by accountability." The audience rose to their feet, applause swelling like a wave. As Nora stepped down, Graham leaned over and whispered, "You just rewrote history." "Not history," she said, smiling softly, "just my part in it." Suddenly, the ballroom doors burst open. Security rushed forward, confusion spreading like wildfire. At the entrance stood Sloane Park, her prison red coat soaked by rain, eyes burning with fury. "I told you," Sloane shouted, voice echoing through the hall. "You can't erase me." The crowd gasped. Flashbulbs flared. Nora turned slowly, calm as still water. "You're not erased, Sloane. You're remembered, for what truth costs when it's sold." Security moved in, but Sloane stepped forward, trembling with rage. "You think they love you? You think redemption lasts?" Nora met her eyes. "No. But my children will grow up free of your lies." Sloane lunged, but officers restrained her, escorting her back into the rain. The ballroom fell silent. Nora turned to the stunned crowd, then to the twins still clutching Maya's hands. She smiled faintly. "Now, where were we?" And as applause slowly rose again, the plaza's chandeliers flickered, light returning stronger than before. The storm outside the plaza had finally passed, leaving Manhattan washed clean under a silver dawn. The streets glistened, and for the first time in years, the air felt light, almost forgiving. The chaos of the night before had already become a headline. Disgraced PR queen Sloane Park recaptured after crashing ethics gala. The footage played on every network. Sloane's rain-soaked face, her screams swallowed by flashing lights, her empire reduced to echoes. But inside the penthouse suite of the hotel, Nora Leighton sat in quiet stillness, wrapped in a soft robe. The twins, River and Rain, slept peacefully in their crib nearby. The faint hum of the city below blended with the steady rhythm of their tiny breaths. A knock came at the door. Nora looked up. "Come in." Adrian Kane stepped inside, still in last night's tuxedo, the fatigue in his eyes tempered by something gentler, clarity. He carried 2 cups of coffee, offering one to her. "Black, no sugar," he said softly. "Still how you like it." She smiled faintly. "Still how I survive." He sat across from her, the morning light framing his face. They released an official statement. Sloane's being transferred to a psychiatric facility. No bail this time. Nora nodded, her expression unreadable. "She'll have time to face what she's done." Adrian hesitated. "And what about you? What happens now?" Nora looked toward the window, where sunlight spilled over Central Park. "Now, I live. I build. I raise them right. The rest, well, I'll let the world decide what I am." He leaned forward. "The world already decided. They see you as the woman who stood up when everyone told her to sit down." She met his gaze. "And what do you see, Adrian?" He paused, then said quietly, "The woman I should have fought for the first time." For a long moment, neither spoke. The city hummed around them, life moving forward as if in approval. Finally, Nora broke the silence. You did fight, eventually. You told the truth. You saved us. He shook his head. You saved yourself. I just followed your lead. She laughed softly. Then follow through, Adrian. Keep the foundation clean. Make sure Kane Quantum never becomes what it was. He nodded. I already dissolved the offshore accounts. Now the new board is full of people who believe in transparency. Because of you. Not because of me, she said gently. Because of what truth demands. Adrian stood, looking at the twins. They'll know, you know. One day they'll read everything about the scandal, the fire, the trial. What do we tell them? Nora rose too, brushing her fingers over the edge of the crib. We tell them the truth, that their parents were flawed, but they fought to become better. That power means nothing without heart, and that sometimes the greatest revenge is peace. He smiled, his voice almost a whisper. Peace sounds good. She looked at him, eyes warm but firm. We'll never be what we were, Adrian, but maybe we can be something new, something honest. He nodded slowly. Honesty I can live with. Outside, the morning deepened. Nora opened the balcony doors, letting in a rush of fresh air. The city stretched wide beneath her, alive and golden. River stirred, his small fist curling in sleep. Rain turned over, murmuring softly. Nora turned back to Adrian. You should go. The press will start looking for quotes soon. He chuckled. They always do. He walked toward the door, then paused. Nora, thank you. For everything. She smiled. Don't thank me. Just stay true. When he left, Nora stood alone for a moment, breathing in the light. Then she took out her phone and typed a short message to Maya Patel. The story's over. Time to start the next chapter. Maya replied instantly. You ready? Nora looked at her children, at the skyline, at the endless promise of morning. More than ever, she texted back. She placed the phone aside, picked up the twins and whispered, let's go home. As the sun rose higher, the city came alive with noise and motion. But in that quiet room, Nora Leighton had already found everything she needed. She didn't just survive her story, she rewrote it. So, that's how the story ends. And if you're still here, my friend, listening all the way to this moment, then something in Nora's journey must have touched your heart too, right? Maybe it reminded you that even when life burns everything down, you can still rise from the ashes stronger than before. This story isn't just about revenge or redemption. It's about healing. It's about learning, as the Stoics taught us, that we can't control what happens, but we can control how we respond. Marcus Aurelius once said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. And that's exactly what Nora did. She turned her pain into power, her heartbreak into purpose. So maybe tonight, wherever you are, take a deep breath and remind yourself, you're stronger than you think. If this story spoke to you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs hope, and don't forget to subscribe, because together we'll keep finding the courage to rise again.